welcome to the first edition of the Tacticians Movesets. This time we're going to be covering Pheromosa. Actually, we're going to be covering first Pheromosa, mostly because this is the Pokemon that I have the most experience using, and because, well, this series is supposed to be about me recommending a moveset, and then Tacticians recommending their own movesets. So, we're going to be starting off with Lanoa. This is what I like to call the Lanoa moveset, the YOLO moveset as I call it. So, how does this work? Well, it's a pretty basic, straightforward moveset. You have yourself an adamant-natured Pheromosa. You give her 4 moves. In this case, high jump kick for that fighting type stab damage, Lun for the bug damage, poison jab to help you deal with those pesky fairy type Pokemon, and finally the really characteristic bounce. So, why do I use bounce in this case of the moveset? Why do I use bounce? Well, bounce is mostly to help you deal with other fighting type Pokemon and to help you set up and deal with those earthquake Pokemon. So like say if you're in a doubles battle and you have a Garchomp on your team, you'll want to use that earthquake, but at the same time you don't want to use it because your Pheromosa doesn't have protect. Well, just have her bounce. She'll fly up into the sky, she won't take any damage from the earthquake. You can deal damage with the earthquake, and while your opponent is trying to figure out where your Pheromosa went, bam! Down she comes next turn, and your opponent is playing the guess game, trying to figure out which of his Pokemon you're targeting with your bounce Pheromosa. So, that's gonna be my first Pheromosa. That's pretty much the straightforward, adamant-natured, YOLO high jump quick Lanoa Pheromosa that you see me using. So our next Pheromosa is going to be the opposite of Lanoa. It's going to be the modest-natured Pheromosa. And unlike my Lanoa Pheromosa set, this one is going to be using the modest nature, and it's going to be using the mostly Fightium Z. So you're going to equip this Pheromosa with a Fightium Z crystal. You're going to give it moves like Focus Blast, Bug Buzz, Ice Beam, Hyper Beam. You know, you max out your EVs, IVs into special attack and speed. It's similar to the physical attacking Pheromosa, but you're going for the special attack. So, this Pheromosa does not have the Focus Sash, so you've got to make use of that beast boost you get. You gotta get that first KO as fast as possible. You're not gonna take many hits, you're not gonna stay in the fight for very long. You've gotta make use of the Pheromosa's speed and power as quickly as you can and snowball as fast as possible. You don't have a lot of defenses and you don't have a lot of health to work with. So that's going to be pretty much the modest natured Pheromosa. Just basically sticking with our beast boost, we're going to be using the Fightium Z crystal, using our speed and burst power to take down our opponents. So the next one is probably going to be one of the most iconic Pheromosas I've ever run, and it's going to be the Trick Room Pheromosa, or the Speed Swap Pheromosa. So, my Speed Swap Pheromosa uses the Speed Swap to swap her speed with their chosen target. In this case, I'm going to go with maybe, say, my opponent's Pokemon. And I'm going to have my Mimikyu on the team, I'm going to say, or whatever Trick Room Pokemon I have, I'm going to have them set up Trick Room. Meanwhile, I'm swapping my really fast speed, in this case my 203 speed stat, with my opponent's, say, 100 speed. Suddenly, they're no longer faster than me, they're slower than me, but because of the Trick Room, I'm faster than them. Or, I can swap out my speed and give it to my ally. Sure, I may lose my Pheromosa in the process, but she's still going to give me some speed on the field, and she's going to make sure my Pokemon are as fast as possible. I mean, have you ever looked at a Wishy-Washy in school form with the speed swap of a Pheromosa? That thing is a nightmare and a terror. I should know. I used it. So what else does this Pheromosa offer? Well, as you can notice, I put the Feint move on there, and for those of you who are wondering, Feint allows you to break through moves such as Protect, Detect, Quick, and Wide Guard. It will break through those protection barriers so that you can, if you're trying to target a Pokemon down, well, that's what the Feint does. It makes it so they can't hide behind their little protect barriers. So that's going to be that, and we're going to be moving on to our final Pheromosa. In this case, we're going to be going for a Quiver Dance setup Pheromosa. Now, if there's one thing Pheromosa doesn't have, it's a lot of defenses. So you can't really set up Pheromosa and expect her to survive for very long. You're going to need another Pokemon on the field. A Pokemon with, say, a Follow Me, for example. Make sure that Pheromosa can set up as freely and as safely as possible. Meanwhile, once your stats are all set up, you've got some pretty good moves you can use. You can use Bug Buzz if you're gonna go for some stab damage. Blizzard if you want to take the risk of missing your target, but at the same time dealing massive ice damage to both of your opponent's Pokemon on the field. And finally, Swift. Now, why did I go for Swift in this case? Pheromosa has a lot more moves she can use. Why would I use Swift? Well, it's a really simple reason. Swift cannot miss, no matter what. The only Pokemon that can avoid Swift are those that are Ghost types. Otherwise, Swift will always hit the opponent. That is one thing why I love Swift. I think it also passes through moves such as Bounce, I think maybe even Dive, or even Fly. It basically can go through certain moves, certain defenses and such perhaps, but Swift is a really, really strong move in that it's never gonna miss. You don't have to worry about that. It has some decent damage. It's a normal type move, which means only rock type Pokemon and maybe even, I think maybe even steel types can, avoid or take less damage from it. But otherwise, it's a really strong move. Now, I'm gonna say this right off the bat. All of these Pheromosas, not all of them are probably the most ideal Pheromosas. These are just what I would recommend. Perhaps you have your own idea for a Pheromosa moveset, but these are just what I would run. So, let me know what in the comment section, what do you think of these movesets? And if you have a moveset of your own you'd like to run, say if you have a Pokemon you want to run a moveset for, well, by all means, make a suggestion in the comments section. I will take all movesets into consideration with my next video as well as the next Pokemon, and I will see you Tacticians next time. Bye bye!